Hi there, Alexis Kingsbury here. Wanted to record a quick video to explain why I created the Accountancy Playbook series. It all started when I started interviewing a load of accountancy practice owners and leaders and experts in the accountancy industry to explore what were the biggest challenges that they were experiencing as they were trying to grow their firms. And what I found was that there were a series of common pinch points and bottlenecks that accountancy and bookkeeping practice owners were experiencing. Particularly one of the biggest ones that came up a lot was client onboarding, for example, where in a lot of businesses, onboarding a new client is not that big a deal. It's, you've done the sales process and had the conversation, and maybe there's a bit of back and forth with an invoice or a quote or whatever, and then perhaps you're arranging the first session or delivering the product. It's pretty easy. But in professional services firms, and particularly in accountancy and bookkeeping, there's a lot more to it than that. You might have anti-money laundering checks and professional clearance letters and migration of their accounts across systems and getting access to different systems and setting the expectations around who are they going to work with and what information you'll need from them and how they'll provide it and it's big. And here's the problem. It means that on the good side for accountancy as an industry, you tend to have high retention. Your clients will stay with you partly because of the pain of leaving you. But on the flip side, when you've done a load of work to convince that potential new client to join you and that you're going to be able to deliver so much more value than their existing accountant, that friction can work against you and make it hard for that client to move. You may even find that they get part way through the onboarding and then say, you know what, I've changed my mind. I'll just stick with what I've got. That often leads to the practice leaders getting heavily involved in client onboarding, which often means that then later on in the journey with that client, when you're delivering services, they expect to interact directly with the practice leader, particularly when anything gets difficult. And that clunky experience is really painful for a lot of practices. And that's just one of the areas that came up frequently when I was doing my interviews. Other areas included managing employee performance, onboarding new employees, rolling out technology, winning more ideal clients, all these different areas. And what I found each time was that the leaders within these practices were having to take the problem and do everything themselves, and often were finding that their time was very stretched. They weren't able to solve it as quickly as they'd like, whilst also keeping the lights on and normal things happening in the business. But also, even if they solved it temporarily, they would often find that they then go on to the next problem, and then it becomes a problem again. And it's because they haven't implemented effective systems and processes in the business that mean that their team find it easy to do things the way that you want them done. And when you do that, when you make it easy for your team to do the right things at the right time in the way that you want and in line with your brand and your values, that's where you truly get freedom as a leader. And it allows you to elevate the impact that you can have on your business, but also on your clients. So I wrote the Accountancy Playbooks to outline the challenges in each of these different areas, whether it's client onboarding or whatever, but also go into depth on what does a good process look like in this area and actually provide examples and templates that you can use as a starting point, but also give you guidance on how you can add the wow factor to the processes to make them really deliver an incredible experience for your team or for your clients or whatever, depending on the scenario. But also I've included guidance on how you can use technology to streamline those processes and how you can make sure that you're implementing it with your team and really getting great results, and how you can measure those results and improve it over time. There's a lot of detail and thought that's gone into those playbooks to make it as easy as possible for you to end up with best practice process where currently you might find you're currently struggling. So that's all there and available for you, but I appreciate that when you first get the playbook and you have a look at the number of pages and go, oh my goodness, there's over 30 pages in this playbook, that can seem pretty daunting or overwhelming. The reality is that in there's some key best practices that need to be applied. Not every single thing needs to be in place for you to solve one of your biggest problems. And if you would like some help just avoiding having to now spend hours sort of procrastinating and worrying about it or reading through it or whatever, just arrange a call with me or a member of my team. I'd love to go deeper into the problem that you're currently experiencing, how you might use that playbook to help solve your problem. And if you need additional support, I can signpost you to where you can get that, whether it's working with our process consultants or getting it elsewhere. But the most important thing for me is that you change and improve your ways of working in your practice so that ultimately you can make time for what matters most. Thanks very much for listening. Hope you enjoy the playbooks.